Hi, everyone. This is Deborah Whitson, and I have with me tonight Jacinta Gallant. So I want to introduce myself. Thank you for joining this Facebook Live event where we're going to explore resource package options for having a low conflict, low cost, low stress alternative to your separation or divorce, especially if you have children together, partner or spouse. And so I want to introduce myself. I'm Deborah Whitson. I am founder and attorney owner of Whitson Law PLLC in Elizabethtown, New York, and also CEO and founder of Mediated Online Solutions, where we provide online virtual mediation services for all manner of family law matters. And I am so happy to have my friend and professional colleague, Jacinta Gallant, with us tonight. Jacinta is a highly respected Canadian collaborative lawyer, conflict trainer, mediator, and innovator in her field. And she has created some things that I have adopted in my law practice that have been completely game-changing for my practice, my staff, and our clients. She's the principal of Waterstone Law in beautiful Prince Island, Canada, and she specializes in innovating and constantly coming up with new ways to provide legal services to families. And she's the founder and president of Innovation for Lawyers, where she delivers those innovations that she creates to the legal community so we can bring them all to the people out there in the world who need them. So welcome, Jacinta. I'm so happy to have you with us tonight.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm really happy to be here. And I think it's wonderful when lawyers can get out on social media and let people see the human side of us. So
Right?
Thank you to those of you who have signed up to come in and be part of this. Thanks for making room for some lawyers in your life.
I know, yeah, and I hope that we can provide some valuable resources and insights to people tonight. And I know we have a lot of questions that have come in advance, but before we get to the meat and potatoes of explaining to our attendees and our audience this, innovative, low cost, low stress way that you have guided people or created a resource for people to be guided toward a better way to approach their separation and divorce, particularly by keeping their kids out of the fray and focusing on kids and the co-parenting relationship as much as possible. So we're going to be focusing tonight on the Our Family and Two Homes resource package and some of the other innovative packages of resources that you've created for lawyers and mediators and attorneys to use with their clients. But before I get to that, I want to ask you, I understand you started out much like I did, like in a traditional law practice where we would follow people up to court and represent them and be their voice in the courtroom. But you've completely taken your practice in, opposite direction where you don't go to court at all anymore and you help people not go to court at all anymore. So tell us about what motivated you to do that and develop these resources.
Wow. Well, I think that so many lawyers start out in a conventional way of practicing, as I did, and as you have. So you learn that one way to help the client is to go fight their fight, like almost for them. Mm-hmm. And what I found was no matter how successful I was in succeeding in court, my clients still felt like losers. Like it really didn't end up leading even the winners to feel that they were going to have a better path forward in their life. And I remember meeting someone a couple of years after a case in court that I felt hadn't gone so well for her. And she said, you know what? We figured that out. That neither of us really wanted what that outcome was anyway. So we just changed it and we're fine. And so I was really starting to think, as someone who's a mother, a community member, a sister, a friend, when I think about all the people in my life, including my own children, I kept seeing that most people with the right kind of help could work things out. And I thought, it's more rewarding for me. So a little bit selfishly, I wanted to do more work where I had a relationship with my client that could actually be a friendly relationship with their spouse if we met in the grocery store, because I'm from a small city. So it was really about helping kids have better outcomes. It was about me being happier at work, thinking that I could actually help people rather than fighting battles that really no one won. Simple as that.
Wow. So, I mean, we have a lot in common, except you're in a small city and I'm in a small, small town. There's not even a city within 50 miles of us. We have a lot of similar values and things that drive us as professionals. But can you tell us more? Because I know our viewers want to know, what is the Our Family in Two Homes resource package? How to, give us an overview of that, how people can utilize it, and what the benefits of that are.
Well, first, I just want to say that the reason I created it was I asked my favorite clients, and that didn't mean that they were easy, what it was like to work with me. 6 years ago, I asked my favorite clients, what could I have done to help you be more fulfilled and happy, and even just to get through the process with me in a way that wasn't so hard on the pocketbook. And I was quite surprised to learn that they really did appreciate that their relationship with their lawyer, that was with me, did have to include more than facts and figures, that the way that they were going to live their life going forward was important, but that they really hadn't expected that a conversation with a lawyer would include consideration of so many parts of their life that didn't apply to the law or the finance. And so when I heard that from clients, that they really did enjoy that and appreciate that, I thought, well, they don't want to pay for that kind of conversation if they're not ready for it. And so many of them said, you asked really great questions, Jacinta. And I often had better answers after I left her office. So I began to put it all together as a mediator, as a collaborative lawyer who likes to work more from a team approach to helping a family make this transition to two homes. And then I created, my first workbook, which you're now using with your client. And what I found was, by asking clients to reflect on really more like, who are you? How do you show up? What's the pattern of communication that you get into with your partner when things aren't going well? And what are the values that you want to see guiding your decision making? And I couldn't get clients to invest that time into those conversations with me in person when they were watching the clock and worrying about what it cost. So instead, I created the workbook, which asks questions around, what do you hope will be better in your life for your family if you're able to work this out without court? Or where are you at with trust? Is it half full, fully full, or are you empty in the trust department? What are your values? How do you communicate? Do you think out loud? Do you ponder quietly? All the things that I know, when people come to an understanding about themselves, they're going to be better able to negotiate and communicate with their soon-to-be ex to try and reach an agreement. And so the package itself is the combination of time with me or you, whether as a lawyer or a mediator, and time on your own with a cup of coffee, tea, beer, wine, really reflecting ahead of time on the decisions that you need to make so you can make the best decision.
So how would somebody use this resource, and how does it integrate into a mediation or a separation or divorce process that involves maybe some legal steps along the way, like a formal agreement or an divorce proceeding or something like that?
Well, I think of this as, this is the preparation. So this means you've got a resource at home that helps you think through the many decisions that you need to make. And at the same time, reflect on some things about you. Because I've had a lot of clients say to me, those were really tough questions, and I'm glad you asked them when I was privately at home and able to reflect. And so it includes reflections, but not just that. There's an explanation of the law. For instance, you're in New York, so the workbook that you're using has the New York law around parenting and child support and spousal support, and even how property is divided. So it's this mix of questions and reflections that lead people usually to discover some things that makes them better able to make good decisions. And then legal information, so that when you're working with your lawyer and, you and I can perhaps eloquently explain the law to someone who's got to now apply it in their life. And then the resource is right there to say, review it tonight when you go home. You have a chance to really, really grapple with the content before you come back with questions. And so the combination is that this is the preparation so that when you're working with Deborah, working with me, whether it's in mediation or whether I'm your lawyer helping you sort of on one side, you're more prepared because you've got the information at your fingertips.
Yeah, I love it, because a lot of my clients would say, how can I make use of this resource when what got us to this point of separating or divorcing is that the relationship and communications had gotten so bad or so ineffective. But it allows them to see where those challenges exist in their communication or their values or their levels of trust or their communication styles, and maybe turn that around in certain ways. But it also, with that legal information that's state specific or jurisdiction specific, they can go back and review that, because I think
Mhm.
sometimes when they're meeting with their lawyer, there's, you know, they're nervous, they don't know what to expect, they're taking it all in, it's a lot, and they can go back and revisit and reconsider that. And I've been using your resource for a little over 2 years now, and clients are telling me that, you know, they used it when I first began offering it to my clients, and 2 years later
Yeah.
into the co-parenting journey, they pulled it out again and said, oh my gosh, I refreshed my memory and I found some great nuggets this time that I wasn't prepared to hear or understand or accept the last
Yeah.
time, or we hadn't encountered that sort of challenge in our co-parenting, and now this was really relevant. So I love that it's something that they can hang on to and
Yeah.
in your drawer and pull it out again.
I when I was asking those favorite clients what it was like, some of them said, you know, you explained this stuff and I wasn't ready. I couldn't absorb it, but I felt stupid, so I didn't say.
Mm-hmm.
And that really hit home for me. I thought, wow, the last thing I want is for my client to feel stupid and not ask a question. Because, you know, when it's your day job, just like whoever's in our audience tonight, you've all got your areas of expertise. But when you're going through a separation and things are tough, and usually communication isn't at its best, what I find is the reflections help people understand and create a path forward, because it normalizes the fact that, you know what, you roll your way, I roll my way. It didn't work, but actually it's not quite so personal anymore. That helps.
That's a great point. So I want to just ask you to sort of give us a context of how this resource is utilized. If I was going through a separation or divorce and I was coming to Jacenta or to Whitson Law Firm or Mediated Online Solutions as a client, what could I expect for how this integrates and what the process looks like in utilizing this resource? And then I want to get into all the audience questions that have been submitted in advance, and there might be some that come in as we're talking and sharing information, but we have a lot of questions. People are really curious about this, so this is great.
All right. Well, my labs are circling and I don't know what's going on, but they must feel it in the air. There must be some other people's dogs in the background. So if I turn and look this way, it's because they're being very cute. Yeah. So here's what we do. And Deborah, I'm not sure how you've set it in your practice, but our website's really clear that if you're going to work with my law firm, we're going to help you. We're going to help you help yourself. We want you to be supported and educated in a way that works for you. So what I love about it is the first thing the client gets when they engage with our office is the workbook. We either mail it to them or they drop in and pick it up. And they're invited to just do the first 13 pages because the workbook is about 40 pages long. And so we want our clients to know that, hey, before you even meet the lawyer, do the first 13 pages and you'll be way better prepared for that meeting. So we don't come right out and say it'll save you money, because we don't think that that's the primary purpose of it, but it does save them money. Because I don't know, there's something about having this guide at home that allows you to be more relaxed coming to see a lawyer. I mean, you know, you and me, like, we're warm and fuzzy and lovely, at least now. I am surprised sometimes when I hear people talk about their perception of me when I was in court fighting.
Yeah, I have that reputation.
Yeah, it's so strange. You're like, what, me? But in fact, by the time they come to our office, for them to feel relaxed because they've been in once already to pick it up, or we've mailed it to them and they've had a nice chat on the phone. We want people to be calm, because when people are anxious and upset and worried, you can't learn as much. Like, you can't absorb, you can't make good decisions. So everything that we do, including the tone that we set in our office, is, I think, much like yours, colorful, relaxed, a sense of sitting around the kitchen table to try and solve problems. And so the workbook is the primary focus in the very beginning of our work together, because it will allow you to identify what are the things you're struggling with the most, because it's so comprehensive. Where do you need our help? Because there may be some things you can handle on your own with our support or on your own completely. Mm-hmm. And then what's the process that we'll use? Is it going to be mediation, which means that both of you commit to coming into the room and trying to work things out? Or is it going to be more of a representation where I'm your lawyer and your partner is going to have their own lawyer, or maybe not even have a lawyer? The workbook still prepares my client to create good ideas, to go into proposals and try and work out. There's the labs. You guys be quiet. Okay, so basically the workbook is the fundamental thing that connects our clients to their work with. And we use it with every client, whether their children are still needing a parenting plan because they're still young, and even with adult children, because people forget that when you're going through a divorce with adult children, there's an impact and there's milestone events coming up, and there's probably grandchildren, granddogs, all kinds of things. So we actually have a workbook that works with every client. And so that's what we love.
Right. So let me just introduce that, because we offer that at our firm too. We actually use all of your resources at our firm, but that's called Our Family in a Few Homes, where we have adult children who may have launched, and maybe they have their own lives and their own partners and their own relationships, and perhaps even grandchildren. And the couple are trying to keep those relationships as harmonious and intact as possible while they're going through their own separation or divorce. So that's a variation based on, where people are in the life cycle when they're separating or divorcing. So just, for our audience's edification. And I'll ask you more about the other resources in due course, but we have tons of questions and I would like to turn our attention to those, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. So you can hardly go online and search anything about relationships without finding the word narcissist in an article. And it's maybe as a sign of the times, maybe it's a sign of how disordered our society has become. I don't know, but I constantly get the question when I'm talking to prospective clients about this resource offering, and they say, what if I see that my ex is a narcissist or they have narcissistic traits? Because look, I'm not qualified to people, and most of our clients are not qualified to diagnose their partner, but they may have read and said, oh, there's narcissistic traits that I am seeing. So can these resources, can Our Family in Two Homes be helpful? Can they be useful? And is it even possible to have a divorce where you minimize conflict when you're divorcing or separating narcissists? What do you say to that?
Wow, that is it. So there's two pieces to this. One is you've described narcissistic traits and then narcissism. And so again, we're not in that field, but one of the things that I've learned from a lot of the studies that I've done as a mediator and as a conflict resolution professional comes from Bill Eddy's, where Bill has been studying. He's a lawyer and a social worker in San Diego, and he teaches a lot of high conflict resolution skill. So is that no matter if someone has a personality disorder that is in the that's actually there, they may never gain insight, right? So there's the disorder that means someone actually may never gain insight into their behavior and its impact on others. And then there's people who are going through a rough time and they're exhibiting behaviors that seem a bit disordered. So a few things is that fighting doesn't help either. So the court process doesn't help. So you're in a tough situation no matter what. So can the workbook, can Our Family in Two Homes help? Well, it can certainly help you be more grounded and ready, because it will ask you so many questions about you, what you need, who you are. And what I've learned from a number of clients is that after years in a relationship that they really felt they were either walking on eggshells or they were really quite put down, that the way the questions are articulated in the workbook gives them hope, gives them a sense of focusing on themselves for the first time in a long. And I've had clients say it was a breath of fresh air for them to really, to be invited to focus on themselves at a time when they don't think anything's possible. And so I would say that it's this approach to working with your lawyer will help you be more grounded and effective in any conversations or discussions that you have to have with your spouse who might be narcissistic or might disorder.
Thank you. And I think
fighting doesn't work anyway.
Yeah, fighting will only give the narcissistic person, a playground. To unleash their narcissistic behaviors on you. So it's a very good point. I want to thank.
And I can say that I had a case that lasted 20 years. So I mean, I've got experience with the combination of trying fighting and then all of the things that we went through with my client in 20 years and her spouse had 11 different lawyers. Every time it didn't work out. And so audience know that Deborah and I know what it's like to have to work with people who don't have insight. So we don't even have to call them narcissists. They're just people who don't seem capable of experiencing other people's experience and the impact of their behaviors on others.
So thank you for mentioning Bill Eddy. And if people want to hear more about Bill Eddy and high conflict co-parenting, he did a Facebook Live with me about a month ago, and it's on it's on our Wits and Law Firm Facebook page, and you can go back and view it. And it's his last name is Eddy. You can find him online. He's quite notorious in this field because he's such a renowned expert, and you can find all sorts of great resources on his website. So,
well, we even have a lending library at my law firm, and his book, It's All Your Fault, is one that we lend regularly, or BIF, how to communicate.
Yeah.
And so know that there's another example audience of people like Deborah and me who actually want to help you help yourself, so that you can utilize our services at the highest value, so we can help you where you need it.
Thank you, Jacinta. So the next question that we have from our audience is, how is the Our Family in Two Homes workbook and resource package different from mediation or collaboratives?
So it isn't different in any way. In fact, it's the thing that helps those processes work most effectively. And so no matter what process you choose, if you're working in mediation, if you're working in a collaborative process, or even if your lawyer is helping you in some less structured way, the workbook just prepares you. That it's as simple as that. It means that you're more prepared to engage in dialogue and not debate, and your lawyer's more, or your lawyer and mediator can be more prepared to help you, because you'll have discovered things that get in the way of your having a productive conversation with your spouse. So if you're in a collaborative process and you're working with other professionals, the workbook goes with the child specialist. The workbook goes with the coach of the mental health profession, the financial neutral that might be working on your case. The workbook integrates with that work as well. And so it's really, think of it as the best preparation tool, and the thing that lets any of the professionals who are working with you work in a more integrated fashion.
So the next question was, is the Our Family in Two Homes workbook valid in both Canada and the US? And I think you answered that there are jurisdiction specific information in the places that you offer it, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that's the amazing thing, that if you're in New York State, the workbook will give you the New York law. If you're in British Columbia, Canada, it's there. We've customized for 38 legal jurisdictions, including Malaysia and Hong Kong and Australia and Scotland and England and the US and Canada. So what's really exciting is that it seems that families everywhere we've been, families seem to really respond to this. It's almost a gift of saying, hey, let's help you prepare so that you're not spending all your money and time in the moment with your lawyer trying to unpack some things that you could really, really do on your own. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to sort of loop together or tie together a couple of questions that have a similar theme. So a number of our audience members wanted to know, what if your co-parent is just difficult and not interested in working with you and not interested in getting a workbook, and, sort of because they don't see themselves as a problem, you're the problem, and they're just fine with how they parent. Is there any utility if you have that kind of co-parent across the aisle from getting the workbook and using this resource?
Yes. And I have a client's permission to use her first name. Sarah proved that. So when I first started with the workbook, I created it just for my clients in my practice, and then it expanded from there, but that wasn't my plan. And so I was initially only using it with clients who were in mediation, because that meant both spouses were ready and willing. Okay. And then I had this client, Sarah, and she came in and her husband was disengaged. They had 3 kids. She was a nurse working night shifts. She was tired. She was taken care of, right? And we couldn't get him to respond, and there was no engagement. And so I'm like, I said, here, take this workbook. I just want to see if it'll help. And she's like, okay. And I said, no rush. I'm going to see you in 2 weeks. Just do the first part of it, and I'll see you then. So then when she came back 2 weeks later, I said, so was it helpful? And she said, thank you. Those were really hard questions, but I'm really glad you asked. And what it did for her, it helped her really, once again, think about what she needed when she was busy trying to take care of everything. And so she was quite grateful for that help. And then it's funny, I saw her again recently, which was when I said, I talk about you all the time. Can I use your first name? And she said, yes. She ended up using the workbook and getting something worked out with him. And then they started doing it together. It took 2 years, but it did allow her to figure out a different way to open up the conversation, say, with him. And they were getting along way better.
So thank you for that answer. And that's a really good segue into, there's a series of questions, again, along the vein of, are there classes on how to make the most of this, or any guidance, or is it self-explanatory? Am I on my own trying to figure this out? Is there a separation agreement in there that I can fill in the blanks on? Just how do it yourself is this resource?
Yeah. Well, so I didn't create this as a do-it-yourself resource because people who are able to do it themselves are often just doing it themselves, and we don't see them, Deborah. right?
Mhm.
And so know that as lawyers, we're going to help you make a decision about what documents you need. So if you need a divorce, if you need a formal, legally enforceable drafted separation agreement, everything that we do as lawyers or mediators remains the same. We just do it better because you're more grounded, you're more prepared. You've had a chance to do some of the homework on your own time. And then we still meet to talk about then what kind of decision you need to make in making a proposal or working out an agreement. Or, I mean, I don't go to court anymore, but clients who are going through a court process would benefit as well from the question and the information that's in the work. So I would say that the instructions that are in the workbook are very accessible, that they're asking people to reflect at a deeper level than you might expect getting from a lawyer, but you do the reflection on your own time. And so really, my question when I first meet the client is to say, well, what showed up for you? What was the experience like to do the workbook? What are the things you learned about yourself? And key to that is, what did you learn about the way you two fight? Like there's a certain part of it that eventually leads you to realize, oh yeah, that's the way we fight. And so trying to figure out ways that you can maybe not do that so much in the future is another way. As mediators, we can help people beyond the legal document. We can help people communicate.
So you may have touched on this, the answer to the next question, but I just want to be really clear. One of our viewers asked, when in the divorce can I use this? Can I ask my husband to work on this and get this resource package before we even file? Or is it envisioned that we use it after we file, or where in the process?
Oh, well, Deborah and I we see clients not always at the beginning and hardly ever at the end. Sometimes by the time I meet a client, they have sorted out some of the things. Like some people easily sort out the money piece, but they struggle on the parenting side. Some people cannot agree on parenting, but the money thing fairly. And so no matter what stage the clients are at, by the time they meet me, they still get a workbook so that they can go in and refine their decision making. They can reflect on some of the things they thought they agreed to. They might on reflection think, oh, we can improve on that. And so our job as the divorce professionals, as the lawyers, is to help refine and tweak, but also really allow the clients to make their own decision, right? We want them to make their own decision. And yet it isn't always easy when people don't agree, right? That's why they meet us.
Yeah, I don't know how many times a day when I'm talking with prospective clients and current clients, I say and stress that it's quite drastic and irrational actually to willingly allow a stranger in a black robe to make decisions about your children, your future, your finances. And unfortunately, some people have no choice because the other half drags them there and won't allow for any other options. But to the extent that people can avoid letting any stranger make a decision about their family and their future, I really think they should try every avenue possible. So
and you're right. The clients don't always get to choose, because if their partner wants to drag it into court. But I will tell you this, I bet Deborah, you've experienced this. I've had people approach me for mediation after they've had the big court battle because they realized how destructive it was and how expensive it was. And so what I like about the workbook in that situation is it's a bit of a reset, right? They're used to this pattern of their lawyers ganging up and going off to court. And if you want to reset, then one way to do that is to kind of shake it off, work with a mediator, and honestly, we're talking about the workbook. So I'll say, have a guide that helps you change your mindset, because switching from adversary and battleground into mediation is best for your family, right? But it isn't easy to do if you're just thrown in cold.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. So the next question is, do you have to see your ex if you want to utilize this resource? And I think you've touched on it, but, and you've talked about that, some parents or parties have a partner or a spouse who just refuses to sort of try to work through something that gives them insight or is cooperative or non-contentious. So I think there's value, but let's just say the parties do want to work together. Do they have to be sitting together?
No. And I think certainly since the pandemic, you don't have to be in the same room anymore. You could use Zoom. You do a lot of online mediation. Yes. The other thing is, what I like again is when clients have a chance to reflect before they begin working with me, and then while they're working with me, they've always got the workbook to go back to. So we're working with it all the time. There's a chance to discover that maybe the best path forward isn't right. I've got a case right now where I've met with each individual spouse. They chose mediation. They've done done the reflections in the workbook, and they've discovered that it's going to be very difficult they're not ready yet to be in the same room. And so our process will include them having lawyers advising them. I'm going to continue to be the mediator, but I met with the mom this afternoon, and I'm going to meet with the dad again next week. And we're not going to go to a joint meeting yet. They're not ready. But if 4 years ago, I probably would have thought, oh, let's just go to the joint meeting, because I might not have been as aware of how difficult things were for them, because they wouldn't have had the guide of the workbook to help them discover that, in fact, this is really not working. So know that a good mediator, and I include lawyers in that, can really help you design a process that works for you. And sometimes it means not getting in the room together, or not yet, working out a temporary arrangement, go off, do some work on your own, because the workbook can guide you to do that. And then let's resume, or get some supports from other professionals like financial people.
So we have a few questions that are more, nuts and bolts kind of questions. So I'm going to dive into those now. So the next question is, do you get 2 workbooks, or do you share and work on it together with your other parent? Do the kids have things to fill in? Do you score each other? And if I score my ex low on something, he or she know that I scored them that way and refused to work with me, so just, what are the pragmatics and the nuts?
Those are such great questions. So we put a note at the beginning of the workbook in the edition that we created, say, a year ago, that specifically says to the clients, this is your personal journey. You do not have to share your answers with anyone. And so the important part is that I actually want each client. Oh, so the answer is they each get a work, right? I want each client to be able to differentiate. You be you, and you be you, because as hard as it is, the us is changed. The us is less of the focus. And so you are instructed to keep this to yourself. And I say a lot of the questions in the workbook we'll be asking a lot of these questions together, but you can write on it a lot, spill coffee on it. Don't write in it at all, but just think, but don't think that anyone's going to be getting into your work. It's really important. Yeah, I had one client really nervous about that, which helped me realize how personal, of course, this whole experience is and when it's your day job, like you and I, we do this daily, you can forget that you have to be very specific and intentional with people to say, this is for you. You don't have to show it to anybody. But once you get into it, you realize that a lot of the conversations that it starts are conversations you need to have, and you're comfortable.
Yeah, I think it does spark some conversations. And I think it also helps clients or parties to really get clear on where there is alignment with the other parent and where there's divergence. So when they start to talk about communication styles, and one person withdraws when there's conflict and the other is more assertive when there's conflict, and they can see, oh, that's us, and that's why it doesn't work when we are trying to communicate in conflict. So
and what I love about that discovery is when they discover that, then I get to say, oh, I can help.
I can help.
Because now I know I've got a case right now where they both acknowledge that when emotion is strong and conflict starts to present itself, that they both fight to be right. So I'm like, okay, it's on, so my job's going to be very much to be helping calm. And it used to, knowing even if you're someone who thinks out loud like an extrovert, or if you're someone who really takes time to process in your mind before you put it out there, which is more of an introvert, even discovering that about yourself. I've had clients say to me, I never knew that about myself, but I've always felt guilty when I didn't want to go participate in all these social outings with my partner. And so these things that are, I don't want to say basic, but they are basic. They're fundamental to who we are and how we show up. I find people are quite enjoy learning about themselves. That's been my experience.
Yeah, mine too. I think it really, there's a lot of light bulb moments that have, oh, wow, that's all making sense about why we had struggled. So,
have you noticed too, though, I've noticed that many times it helps them confirm their decision, right? The decision to separate, that there have been some insights that say, yeah, this is the right thing, as hard as it is, there's some hope there, but also some confirmation.
Yeah. I also, I don't know if it's a function of the pandemic and the stress that caused, and then I've also had this resourcer, just Jen, who, when with some support and some communication skills guidance, they realized that they can better than they had without that support. I've had people get all the way through to a separation. They start an uncontested, such as they want to see. So I've had a flurry of
Yeah.
People were when they, with a little bit of support and reaffirmation that, you're just different and you have different styles. And it doesn't mean one person's right, person's wrong, thing is broke. It just think about that and respect person's style. And you can make those things. So you and I are having it where we can
Yeah.
and co-parenting, but sometimes they think like, well, maybe that was, we gave up on the relationship too soon. So
It is. I mean,
great.
I had so many clients say, if we had done this work 10 years ago, we wouldn't be
Mhm.
breaking up. And that's actually why we created the workbook, Planning for Your Next Chapter. So we created that one because the exercises were really effective in helping co-parents
Mhm.
communicate more effectively. And so what I find now is there are some couples where we're not sure which workbook they should get because they might still be hoping for their relationship to work. So any listeners who are on the fence, right? I mean, it can be a really productive way to have discussions that matter. And it'd be surprised that you'd have that with a divorce lawyer, but we do spend a lot of time with people who are improving communication because.
All right, I want to talk about the others, but let's go with questions about our to have people who may need to hop off or something.
Yeah.
So people ask, can you estimate how much time it takes to do the workbook and work through this resource package?
Well, I think everybody's different in terms of how much time they spend with the workbook because some people reflect quickly. Other people ponder and go for a walk while they're thinking about an answer to a question. But certainly the way it works in terms of you work with me is I would say it would take maybe an hour or a half an hour for you to prepare for the first meeting with me on doing the reflection exercises. And then when we meet, you're more prepared to make decisions about what you need help with. And so in that first meeting, we identify what are the topics that you need help with: parenting, support, property, all of it, half of it, so that you can then leave that first meeting with some more homework. Okay, now work on these pages of them, and then do some work, come back, we get started again, identify more. Okay, now do this section because the workbook's intended to comprehensively look at what you need in a separation: parenting, child support, kids' expenses, spousal support, if that's relevant, and how you'll deal with your assets. And so how much time it takes really, really depends, but it could be as short as a half an hour in preparation.
Okay. And so I'm also asked, you just answered a question about, does this cover everything, what happens to our healthcare and our housing?
Yeah.
Your answer is yes. You eventually will cover all of this.
Well, the important thing is that we consult with a lawyer in each jurisdiction. So Deborah, you were our New York consultant to make sure that it explains the law, but also all the tips, like healthcare tips or
Mhm.
social security tips, or in Canada, it's like change your address with the Canada Revenue Agency, or else this is a problem. So all those tips are included as well, because we want to be able to reinforce. Clients will often leave with a sticky note saying, okay, remember to do that thing. And then they can have the thing noted in the work.
And that's a good segue into a question one of our viewers had about, in their situation, that one spouse is in New York and the other is in. So if the spouses are in two jurisdictions, is this applicable? Is it relevant? Is it useful?
Oh yeah. So I think we've talked enough about how useful the reflection is and the information. So where the laws might be different, it can be particularly useful because, of course, if you want a lawyer in England who's using the workbook, we could help you find one because we have them. The other part, though, is that where there's a contest about which law applies, the workbook can't help you with that. But in terms of understanding which laws, if you choose the New York law or the England law, the workbook can definitely do that because it can explain what it is in that jurisdiction.
And that's just one of minutes for the process. Things like which law applies, or if we have it.
Yeah,
Sometimes you have a choice.
sure. Yeah, and there can be quite big differences depending on where.
There's something to ask if you
Yeah.
have. So we have a question about, do the parents get trained on co-parenting? And
Yeah, I wouldn't call the workbook itself training in co-parenting. What I would call it is preparation to open up your mind to the things that you might need to work on. And certainly in my practice, I'll recommend clients working with a child specialist or sometimes a child psychologist to attend to parenting things that are special and unique for their family. But in Canada, there's lots of parenting training that's offered, and you've probably got some resources that you recommend as well. Yeah. So no, I wouldn't call it training. No,
there's some great online resources, and some are better than others. So I'm always happy to help my clients sort of discern more quality, and some free or inexpensive and still quick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good stuff.
What I think I'd say is that the clients that do the reflections and the exercises in the workbook are more open to addressing the things that they need help with on the
Mhm.
parent, because they've opened up the possibility and it's less personal.
I will say that I have some training in co-parenting coaching, and my undergrad was in development and families, and I've studied developmental, I had refresher courses in developmental psychology as it pertains to the needs of kids living in separate households. So, I bring that to, there are good coaches as well.
Yeah. Sure. And a good
Um,
lawyer will recommend to a client where they can get resources, people who have that.
So I know everybody's like, what, I hope everybody's thinking, this sounds great. This sounds something I'm really interested in seeing if I can use. So what's included? What's the cost? And, what is the process to go through and out of course in this resource as part?
Well, I think the cost is going to depend on where you are. So if you're looking at in my practice, we provide a flat fee that takes you from hello and getting started with us to the end of that first joint meeting with your partner if you're in mediation, or the end of another phase of work if you're not in mediation. And the whole idea is that we want costs to be predictable so that this is what I'm getting for this $2,000, or that there's some certainty around it so that you know what you're getting and you know what might not be completed by that. And so I don't know how to explain it any better than that. But as an example, you're going to save about 4 hours of time with me just by using the work, because you'll be more prepared as we have to make decisions going. And then most lawyers won't work with flat fees. So those of us who are using the workbook are finding that we can offer a flat fee for a certain amount of service, because we know that if you invest your time in doing the workbook, you're going to be able to save money because we're going to be able to deliver the goods, including drafting documents and helping you get to your deal.
So
But as far as cost goes, I think that you have to be really, one of the best ways to choose a lawyer is someone who's comfortable talking about, right, and being upfront.
Can you give us an example of what you package?
Yeah. So for me, if it's a mediation, then we offer a flat fee of $2,400 that takes you from your first contact with our office, some phone call preparation, you get the workbook, and then I'll spend time with each spouse for probably an hour and a half. And then we'll do some basic information gathering to get the financial information really sort of just at the basic level organized. And then we have a meeting, all three of us, me and the two clients. And at the end of that meeting, we've usually gone so much further than we would have before I had them using the workbook, that we can actually predict cost from there on. What's not been done, some people reach agreement in that first meeting. Most people need more. And then we price it from there, either continue hourly or another resource package price. And a lot of it is to do with a discussion that I'll have with the clients about what's their budget, what's their spending plan, what can they afford. And by the way, I find that people who can afford a lot still don't want to pay a lot, right? They don't want to overpay me. And so we really do, at the end of that joint meeting and mediation, we can identify the areas that they might actually be able to help themselves with at the kitchen table, just having a chat, and what parts they're going to really need dedicated attention of me as the lawyer to help. And I love how we can prioritize so that I'm not trying to help with everything if they don't need it. But if they do need it, I can help. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we do a similar thing. I mean, I know that, when you develop this resource and you license it to mediators and attorneys around the globe, that you have suggested ways to use it and suggested ways to consider pricing. So many of the suggested things you put out there adopted, but we find that there's a whole gamut. Some have sat at the kitchen table and really talked through most everything, and they kind of have a meeting of the minds, and they just maybe need some more flesh on the bone. Yeah. So that's one package price that is, really available, because they've done a lot of the work. The workbooks will help keep the cost low to them, and then we will assist. We'll do the draft. They want to go the next step. There's some legal work that our law, processing contestants. But suffice it to say that most of the times when we customize a flat fee, but we describe what's a flat fee. Yeah. Here's what you're going to get for that flat. What they can figure out how to cost share that. Maybe one party's going to pay it 50-50 split it and some. But suffice it to say that most of the time, the overall quote, even if we're going suits to test a divorce, is less than one person per attorney. If they hire two of those, they're looking at twice of that. So if they each go out and plunk down $5,000 or $4,000 to hire an attorney, the flat fee for the entire package, less than one initial retainer. And when you're hiring a divorce attorney for a court-based matter, that initial retainer is just your first deposit towards the hours of the chance chances are yes. So it is super affordable in the scheme of things. If you're comparing it to, do we both have to go to consider these things?
And even when there's complexity and you're going to need a lot of time working with it, it's still more efficient. I mean, if it's complex, it's going to take longer anyway. It's going to cost more anyway. But I swear, I love the ability to assign, I'm going to call it homework because it is work that you do on your own time, that there's a guide and a support for it rather than an email explaining and then charging you for it. You know, please consider this and that, and all of the extra time that I used to spend, the clients would pay for that I felt wasn't really that productive. So I just want to, if clients are paying me my hourly rate or part of the resource package fee, I want them to get good, excellent. And they usually do. They usually say that they do, or they come to us after they've already spent $20,000 on another lawyer that I didn't get anywhere. I'm like, bring the 20 grand to me next time. Oh, wow. Yep.
Yeah. Right. For a fraction of that, you could have done the whole. So we're winding down. So I think one of the final questions is that somebody has mentioned they heard that you offer training. So what things do you train on? When are your next trainings? And what can you tell our audience about that?
Well, that's so I train divorce professionals for the most part in how to get along. I laugh that I train lawyers to get along better, you know, to be nice. But it's not really that. It's more like how can professionals work more effectively with clients so that we can help families make these healthy transitions like I feel passionately about. So I'm mostly training lawyers, mental health professionals, financial professionals, but I think we're going to start doing something with the public, which is our brand new idea. And so if you are a professional working in law, mental health, financial coaching, you can look at my website, jacintagallant.ca, and you'll see what I'm offering. I'm offering training in conscious contracts, which you don't have to be a lawyer to look at, because that's a way of looking at building a contract for the people that are going to use it rather than just some boilerplate legal document. And then this is our new, my new love. So this is the book we're selling to the public, and it's the Going Steady Toolkit. So you may not be ready for it yet, those of you who are in the audience, because you're going through a separation. But if you do, repartner, or you've got someone else in your life, keep in mind that there's a lot of us that have been in the divorce field for a long time that have tried to figure out ways to help people stay together. And so I think what we're going to do in the new year is offer something around an online communication skills training that is delivered hand in hand with the themes that are in Going Steady. But that's it for now. I mean, I really do travel all over the world, either virtually or in person. I've been teaching in Malaysia the last 2 weeks, 25 lawyers who want to help families in Malaysia not go to war. And so people like us, you meet lawyers like me and Deborah, we actually care. And so I think that there's a lot of people who want to work the way we do, and they come to my.
So excited things, professionals, but ultimately helping.
Well, I mean, it's like, look at what you've just done. You wrote a book to try and help people stay out of court. You should talk about your book.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm so spaced out today. I don't even have it with me, but I mean, I'm going to grab it. It's right here.
Grab it, because I often laugh, it's like we're trying to get ourselves out of work. Divorce lawyers trying to help people not have to go to court anymore so that we don't make it. I don't, but anyway, it's because we care. Yeah. It's a great book.
Yeah. And I would rather because you can do you can do 20 or 30 times more non-court divorces in the time it takes to do a court divorce.
Yeah.
So I would rather charge a fraction of the cost and do 20 times more court divorces than one litigated divorce. I'm just too old to see people, right? I've seen so that was the motivation behind Divorce Like a Pro. It's available on Amazon. You can download a Kindle, and we'll see. And it talks about the fact that you have choices. You have everything from kitchen table, where you're mostly doing it yourself, and having a lawyer double check your agreement with the legalese around your self-divorce packet, to mediation, to collaboration, and to mediation and collaboration using resources like Two Homes. And then the last resort is court, and how to approach if you have no choice but to go to court because you're not in a state where mediation or arbitration are not mandatory referrals. Like New York is not a mandatory referral state where couples must try mediation or go to an arbitrator or a court make a decision. Unfortunately, we don't have that in New York. So some of my clients have no choice, and then me and my team of lawyers are going off to court with them. But there's strategies you can employ to reduce the cost, the stress, and the toll on yourself and your children, including how to hire the right lawyer to take you to court or to accompany you to court so that they're not, I don't guess I shouldn't swear on Facebook, but to stir the crap pot just for the sake of stirring the crap pot. You want a problem solver lawyer who will get to the heart of settlement, who will be good at settlement and try to minimize the time and the cost, emotional stress and the collateral. That's so important. So that was what inspired me.
Judges expect us, right?
I know it's
judges
Mr.
don't want to hear this crap.
Mrs. or
They don't want to
Mrs.
hear it.
versus Mr. It's adversarial, but it doesn't have to beat each other over the head and burn down the house and do the scorched earth. There's nobody that. The lawyers win because they make money off. But anyway, don't get me going. Anyway,
don't get me going either. But if you have to
Also-
go, Deborah and I mean, if you're dragged in because your partner will not communicate and choose another approach, then Deborah is right. I used to pride myself in being that lawyer that would be a strong and great advocate, but that was sensitive, tried to settle it. It's just that you and I can't do that.
99% of them settle. The question is how much agony and So the other thing I want to mention before we talk a few moments about your other, I know you have other resources, those, is that I will be joined on another Facebook Live in a format like this on December 5th with divorce coach Susan Bernstein, member of Vested Professionals, and Liz Becker, who's president of the National Association of Divorce Professionals US and the founder and chief facilitator of the Certified Divorce Specialist. And we will be talking about what you need to know about divorcing a narcissist and how to get through that, how to protect yourself, what resources are out there, don'ts. So that's going to be 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on December 5th. So look for that being posted on there's a good event page, I think, already created. I'm posting on our site. But just to take a moment to take us through your various resources. We've seen some.
I mean, there's really not much more to chat about. I mean, that if you're looking for a marriage contract, well, you are offering this as well. I mean, Designing Our Future Together is a workbook that you can use with your lawyer to help so that you and your partner aren't feeling like it's all about, I don't trust you. We got to get this in writing. There's a way to say we need to enter into a conscious marriage contract or a prenup or a cohabitation, or even if you're going through some struggles in your relationship and you want some help to build your future in a more positive way, that workbook. And then the other one is Our Family in a Few Homes, which is for people with adult children. And I would simply just do a shout out to Carol Hughes and Bruce Fredenberg, who wrote the book Home Will Never Be the Same, because they really felt that the adult children were not getting much attention, and there's a lot of pain and sadness and grief that adult children go through. So paying attention to that relationship and the fact that parents who are separating when their kids are already grown up can care a lot about their relationship as well, even though they're not parenting little people anymore. And then my fun project is honestly, it's goingsteadytoolkit.com. And it's just a fun book that's meant to, in some ways, what Our Family in Two Homes does to help people just go like, oh, yeah, we're different. Yeah, I've got my part, you've got your part. Nobody wants to be told that, but people seem pretty happy to discover that. And that's really been my approach. Try to do less telling, because no one likes that. I don't like it. And more asking, hey, who are you? How do you show up? How you doing? And that we can be way more productive working with our clients, but also working in our lives when we do more asking and less telling. So you don't learn that in law school.
You don't.
But that's really what I'm trying to carry forward now for the rest.
I'm so glad. I mean, you're such a shining light in the world, doing the good things. And, having come from a more traditional divorce practice as I have, where it wasn't so client focused and so, focused on steering clients to help grounding than the traditional court process. So I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that I found you professional and that it has allowed me to tap into that part of me and share this here in Upstate. So thank you so much for spending time with us tonight. I hope our audience got a lot out of all questions that you were here to answer for us or for them. And forward to the next new innovation coming out of innovativelawyers.com and jacintagallant.ca. Very able to be give New York resource and licensees resources.
Well, good things come at a small place. There you go.
This is true. And to our audience, thank you for taking your time to join us tonight and to submit those thoughtful questions. You made this more valuable for everyone who was tuned in. I hope you got everything you were hoping to get out of it. Look for us on the website. Tell us where do they find you again, Jacinta?
Oh my gosh, too many places. JacintaGallant.ca is probably the best place to find me. That's unless you need a lawyer in Prince Edward Island, that's where you'll find me and the training things that we're doing. And then our family in two homes, or in2homes.com, is more for the professionals who are looking to use our resources, and goingsteadytoolkit.com is for the fun book that you might.
Okay, and so if you're here with us, you know already how to find us on Facebook on Whitson Law Firm Facebook page, but you can find us also at whitsonlawfirm.com, or our mediation sister company, where we do mediation of all types of family law related matters anywhere in the world, and virtually. And if you have, stay you in person as well. And we can be found at mediatedonlinesolutions.com. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Jacinta. Thank you. Great seeing you, my friend.
Thanks so much.
Alrighty. Good night, everyone.
Night.